Seoul's story begins over 2 millennia ago with the establishment of the Baekje Kingdom in 18 BCE. Nestled within the fertile lands of the Han River Basin, the region was initially inhabited by indigenous tribes before evolving into a small settlement known as Wiryeseong. In the late 14th century, under the reign of the Joseon dynasty, Seoul began to take shape as a significant political and cultural center. Renamed Hanyang, the city flourished, boasting impressive architectural achievements, such as the construction of the magnificent Gyeongbokgung Palace. Throughout this Joseon era, Seoul thrived as the capital of Korea, serving in this seat of power for over 500 years. It became a hub of scholarly pursuits with the establishment of prestigious institutions like Sunkyunkwan University, thereby fostering a culture of learning and intellectual exchange. The word Seoul has its origins in the ancient Korean term Sorobol, meaning capital. Over time, Sorobol underwent linguistic evolution to become the name we know today. Seoul was officially adopted in 1945 after Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule. Seoul's history is not without its trials and tribulations. The Japanese invasions of Korea in the late 16th century, commonly known as the Imjin War from 1592 to 1598, were a series of military campaigns launched by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the powerful ruler of Japan, with the aim of conquering Korea and eventually invading Ming China. While Korea and China successfully repelled the Japanese invasions, the conflict left a devastating impact on Korean society, with widespread destruction of infrastructure and loss of life. The war also strained relations between Korea and Japan for centuries to come, contributing to a legacy of animosity and mistrust. In 1910, Korea was annexed by Japan following the signing of the Japan-Korea Annexation Treaty, which effectively ended Korea's status as an independent nation. Japanese colonial rule over Korea was characterized by harsh repression, cultural assimilation, and economic exploitation. Following Japan's surrender in World War II in August 1945, the Korean peninsula was liberated from Japanese rule. It was agreed to divide Korea along the 38th parallel, with the Soviet Union occupying the north and the United States occupying the south. On June 25, 1950, the Korean War officially began when North Korean forces, under the leadership of Kim Il-sung, invaded South Korea in a surprise attack aimed at reunifying the peninsula under communist rule. After 3 years of fighting, the war reached a stalemate and an armistice agreement was signed in July of 1953. Despite this, the Korean War technically never ended, as no formal peace treaty was ever signed. As a result, the Korean peninsula remains divided to this day, with North and South Korea remaining separate states with vastly different political and economic systems. Despite these challenges, Seoul emerged from the ashes of war with a renewed sense of resilience and determination. In the latter half of the 20th century, it underwent a rapid economic transformation propelled by industrialization and modernization efforts. Today, Seoul stands as a testament to the enduring spirit of its people and the remarkable journey it has undertaken. Its skyline is a fusion of ancient palaces and modern skyscrapers, reflecting the city's seamless blend of tradition and innovation. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Travel Like Locals podcast. I am your host, Alex Tabbery. Today we will dive into the city of Seoul, South Korea. I traveled to Korea in July of 2017, where I spent my 4th of July holiday at the DMZ, the demilitarized zone that makes up the border between North and South Korea. Unbeknownst to us, shortly after we arrived at the DMZ, Kim Jong-un fired a test missile as a 4th of July gift for America. Luckily, this didn't really turn out to be anything to worry about, and thankfully it didn't affect the trip. During my time in Seoul, I met up with a local friend who had studied abroad in Texas, and he took me to many amazing sights. We saw the beautiful Gyeongbokgung Palace, visited the site of the 1988 Summer Olympics, and took in views of the city from above at the North Seoul Tower. And what trip would be complete without trying the local food? We had Korean barbecue, kimchi, and Korean fried chicken, which is their adaptation of what U.S. soldiers had introduced to them during the Korean War. For Seoul, though, I have decided to cook bibimbap, a delicious Korean staple featuring rice, vegetables, and meat. You can find this video on my Instagram and TikTok at TLL_pod. In a minute, you will hear my interview with Eungul, a tour guide in this great city. We will talk about Korean culture, learn some words and phrases, and dive into some of the city's hidden gems. For all of his recommendations and more, be sure to check out my website, www.tllpod.com. But for now, on to the interview. All right, I'd like to welcome our next guest on the podcast, a tour guide from Seoul, South Korea, Eungul. Eungul, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Eungul. I'm based on the west part of Seoul, South Korea.
Awesome. So, what got you into being a travel guide?
So I had an interesting job when I was a university student. I took off one semester off and I got a job at a travel agent called Segang Travel, owned by a Korean Taiwanese man. And he established the first route between Taiwan and Korea. And he was a very cool boss. And there we had lots of Cantonese speaking tour guides and guests from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Guangzhou, and elsewhere. My job was to book a hotel for free individual tours, like small group of tours and guests from other countries, especially from those areas. I booked a hotel. I collect receipts like offline, in person, by visiting those hotels. And dealing with all the tour guides and guests was very interesting to me, and that grabbed my attention. Then later, I taught English because my major is English, and just not English language, but I mean business English, interpretation, translation, and everything. But I didn't really like teaching very much. I like teaching, but more as time goes by, people do not have time to take time to study languages, and especially if you don't start younger, if you do not start when you're a teen or 20s, from late 30s, I found many people find it difficult to improve, and it is very frustrating because their frustration becomes my frustration, and I cannot do their job. So rather than doing that, I thought that being a travel guide would be the best job. And also, I actually got a government tour guide license many years ago. So I kept it, and I was only thinking about it. But 2015, though, I ran a website called GoGetKorea.com, where I made itineraries for my friends. Just when they visit, I offer these itineraries so that they can get around when I'm not there for them. So I really liked it. Now I'm working as a travel guide.
Awesome. How long have you been doing this for now?
So seriously, as a guide from July last year.
Okay, nice.
I still keep a side job, like teaching languages. I still teach English and Korean, English to Korean people, and Korean to British people and some Europeans. So
Okay, very cool.
Only one day. And I started working as a tour guide from July pretty intensely, but then I stopped at the end of November to reprogram everything because I didn't want to do just normal things, but I normally do hidden gems now.
Okay,
Majorly.
very cool. So, in your opinion, what would you say is the best time for somebody to come and visit Seoul?
Okay, the best time is March, say mid-March and April, because we have cherry blossoms, and when you see all the cherry blossoms everywhere in Seoul, because I'm from Seoul, but also you can see all around Gyeonggi area. Gyeonggi is the province that surrounds Seoul and elsewhere. So everywhere you go, you feel like you have a party because it's really beautiful and it gives you kind of fantasy vibe. So it's awesome to visit that era during that time.
Okay, and what's the weather like there? Is it pretty cold, or what should people be prepared for?
The weather. Oh, do you do Fahrenheit? I do only Celsius.
I can convert it to Fahrenheit.
Okay, Celsius wise, it is between 15 to 23. So it's the
Okay.
perfect weather. Light jacket, especially if you're from the West, if you're Caucasian or black, especially, you have a hotter blood. So Asians tend to feel more cold. So light jacket would be good, but the climate difference between the night and day would be like huge, 10 degree difference. So it would be at night, it would be 13. At daytime, it could be 23, 24.
Okay, so I guess converting for the listeners, that's during the day about 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and at night could get down to about 50. So, no, definitely good to know there. Are there any other major local events or festivals throughout the year that are worth tourists coming and traveling for outside of the cherry blossoms?
So outside cherry blossoms, we have Boryong Mud Festival that is held on the west coast of Korean Peninsula called Boryong. So there's a Boryong, and they have the huge mud. The current, the west coast in Korean Peninsula has one of the coasts that has currents go. What's the expression? Go retract, and come back. The
Okay.
tide goes away and comes back,
Hmm.
and when it's away, you can go to the mud like 100 meters or 100 yards away, and you can enjoy mud because their mud is one of the best in
Okay.
Korea, and there's a huge festival for many days, and many people from other countries and Korean people also love it.
And so the mud, is this like a spa sort of thing, or what's the purpose?
Yeah, mud is very yeah, it's for spa. It is very good for skin,
Hmm.
and they also make skincare products using their mud because their mud is very famous in Korea.
Okay, very cool. So when people are coming to Seoul specifically, if you only spoke English, would you be able to get around, or are there any words and phrases that you would recommend people to learn?
You have no problem getting around Seoul without speaking Korean.
Hmm.
Um, there are a few. Do you want to go over some expressions for the viewers?
Yeah, that would be great.
So the expressions would be like 얼마예요? How much is it? Because when you want to buy, if you want to buy, and 감사합니다, thank
Hmm.
you, and 죄송합니다 is I'm sorry.
Okay.
So nodding a little bit would be respectful, especially towards older folks. And 괜찮아요, that's okay. Because some people would say sorry because they want to be more polite to people from other countries or cultures. So you
Hmm.
can say 괜찮아요, or like 감사합니다, thank you, 죄송합니다, sorry.
Okay. No, very cool. Could we talk a little bit about the culture and just customs in South Korea specifically, since obviously they differ a bit from other parts of the world? What are some specific customs or cultures that people should be aware of when they're over there?
So one of the biggest customs that you must be aware is being not loud. So
Hmm.
especially if you're from the West, you would speak more loudly, and
Hmm.
some countries have more reputation of being loud. And to be honest, I have been hushed in my life 3 times on
Mm.
the subway train when I was with American friends, and they tell
Okay.
me to keep quiet because most people do not speak English. I mean, some do, and
Hmm.
they said you should tell them to be quiet and like that. And I was hushed. But on the train, many people are extremely quiet. They want to do their own thing. They want to take a nap, or they want to just look at their smartphone. And Korean people are smartphone addicts. They're all NPCs, but they don't want to be disrupted by other noise. They want you to be quiet. Even there's an announcement. When you talk on the phone, please make it short or do not talk loud. So
Hmm.
that's one thing everywhere. But in the street, you can just talk. You can become yourself, no
Hmm.
problem. But especially on the subway train and bus. And also on the bus, one time I was with a Californian friend at the very first seat of the bus. The bus driver told us to keep quiet and speak Korean.
Mm.
And I asked him again, what? What did you say? And he said, speak Korean. And I said, I cannot because he's American. He doesn't speak Korean.
Hmm.
And he was angry. So I said, okay. So we went back to the very end of the seats, back of the
Hmm.
seats.
Okay, so how, in general, is that a typical experience for the Seoul people with foreigners, or how friendly would you say people are in general?
Korean people and Seoul people are very kind to foreigners. You don't have to worry about it. I just introduced you to some weird experiences that I had in my life.
Okay.
It doesn't really happen often, but anything could happen in the world.
Hmm.
But when you are looking for help, if you can even ask around about for directions, and people will definitely help you. And many people welcome you, but there's an extreme people. Some restaurants and cafes, to your surprise, are not open to foreigners.
Hmm.
And this was a very controversial issue on Instagram and all forms of social media as well. The reason why I didn't really ask them, but as a Korean person who was born and raised in Korea, I can say that they do not want to speak English. I think they don't want to deal with another language barrier. And secondly,
Hmm.
I think that the way people do be walk and talk and behave will be just different. So they don't want to. They may not want to accept it. I don't know. That's because I don't know those types of people. They're not so many. They're quite rare.
Yeah, sure. Okay, no, that's great to know. When people are coming over to stay in Seoul, is there a specific area that you would recommend people to stay in for accommodations or just to avoid completely?
So if you want to stay in a local area, try to avoid the center of Seoul, like Myeongdong or
Hmm.
Jongno. Myeongdong is the most touristy. It's so full of tourists. Only there are only tourists, I think. And they have a good offerings with hotel deals. That's why some people who are on a business trip would be inclined to stay there. But if you want a local experience, I strongly recommend that you stay on the outskirts of like not tourist areas. Where I stay is Mangwon, and we have a conventional market. It's the second biggest conventional market, third biggest conventional market, and it is super nice. All the local people come here to buy groceries. There are so many street foods, and I live 1 minute walking distance. This is
Hmm.
a good area called Mangwon.
Okay.
And if you want to avoid noise, one friend of mine from the States canceled her 1 week stay in Itaewon. Itaewon was a former American Army town. There are so many
Hmm.
foreigners there because of that history. Still, many people would find it easy to be there because you don't look so different from other fellow foreigners.
Hmm.
And there are some clubs and really loud bars and pubs. And my friend had to cancel because it was too loud and the neighbors, also all the neighbors come there for holiday or vacation, and they
Hmm.
made a lot of noise, whether Korean or other Europeans or Americans. So she had to cancel it and found another hotel in Shinsa, one part of Gangnam.
Okay.
Oh,
And
and
compared,
sorry, one more. Sorry,
yeah.
Hongdae area, like a downtown, really noisy area. Hongdae is the noisiest party place. Myeongdong was traditionally the hub to the visitors. Now Hongdae, there's so many people, and I don't think you will find peace there if you want to stay there for quite a long.
Perfect. No, that's great to know. Compared to other parts of the world, how expensive are the accommodations in Seoul?
So accommodations would start from 30,000 won, so it would be about $22. It would start $22, but safely though, I would say from $25 to $70 per night. But you can,
Okay.
if you book earlier before you arrive, you can find a good deal. Found recently at one hotel they offer special deals. 3 weeks, $350. It is a three-star hotel.
Wow.
So
So
I bookmarked it actually. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's very inexpensive, I would say, compared to other major cities. So that's great.
Right.
What would you say is the best way to get around Seoul transportation wise?
The best way is to get a T-Money card
Okay.
and use the subway. Subway system is ranked as number one in the world by one real
Mm,
estate company in the UK. So if
wow.
you have one T-Money card, one ride is about $1.10,
Hmm.
and for the first 10 kilometers, I'm sorry about kilometers. Yeah, sorry. So the
No.
first 10 kilometers,
Hmm.
they charge you 1,451, which is about $1.10.
Okay.
And after you pass by 10 kilometers, every 5 kilometers, they charge you 101. So it's like
Mm,
80 cents.
hmm.
And when you transfer to bus from subway, they don't charge you. That you can just transfer without extra cost. It is all the travel is based upon the travel distance,
Hmm.
not the kinds of transportation that you use. So whether you start from a bus to subway and to a bus, or subway to a bus to subway, it doesn't matter. It's only you're charged with by distance.
Okay. That's really cool. And how simple would you say it is to use for a foreigner? Like, is there any apps you would recommend them to download to help, or it's pretty simple to figure out on your own?
It's very simple, but if you arrive at Incheon Airport, you can go to the public transportation center where you will have to start your journey using the subway. Then there's a machine where you can buy T-Money card. There's a huge machine you can buy with your cash. When you
Hmm.
buy T-Money card, you always need to use cash, and also when you top up, use cash because the Seoul Metro is in the red. They're so behind, and they do a
Mm.
good job for the citizens and any visitors from all around the world. And or you can buy it at a convenience store. You can say, "Can I have a T-Money card? T-Money card, please." Then they will understand. So you can buy T-Money
Hmm.
card at 3 or 4,001. It's only $2 or $3, and then you top up by like from 1,001 to many thousand ones. So basically, you would want to probably top up 10 or 20,000 won.
Okay, perfect. What um what foods are, I guess, the most popular in Korea that you would recommend people to eat?
Oh, I'm an expert in this because I'm a huge
Perfect.
food lover. Uh, Many people like Korean barbecue in the States or
Mm.
in Europe.
Hmm.
Korean barbecue in Korea, in the mainland, in Kimchiland, of course, is the best. But there's something that you can't eat. It is 닭갈비. 닭갈비 is a marinated chicken. So literally translating,
Hmm.
갈비 is actually rib. But in Korea, rib, um, whether it is beef or pork, rib is marinated. That's why it's chicken, marinated chicken, and it's a little bit of spiciness. It's not so spicy at all. So it is stir fried chicken with other different kinds of veggies, glass noodle, rice cake, cheese. It is amazing. So that kind
Mm.
is number one. And there's other types of chicken dish. For example, samgyetang. Samgyetang is chicken with ginseng and dates. It gives you lots of energy, and you will be a fighter after you eat it. It is a very good dish. Many Korean people eat it, and anybody who eats it, they will like it. They love it.
Great. Are there any special customs or things people should be aware of when eating in a restaurant?
Not really. Customs in Korea are less formal because when you go to, I stayed in Europe, I stayed in the States, I stayed in New Zealand, I traveled to many countries, and there
Mhm.
are some etiquettes. But once you come to a Korean restaurant, some staff will like stop you and how many people, and other restaurants they wouldn't even ask, so you can just find your seat. And even if they say how many people, 2 people, and they will say, "Oh, you can sit anywhere," or "Oh, you can sit there." So
Mhm.
they're not so strict. And when you sit, they will serve you water. Water is free always. They don't charge you with water, so you can just get water. And when you are ready to order, you can raise your hand
Mhm.
calling like 저기요, like hey there, or 여기요, hey I'm here,
Mhm.
and you can order food from there. That's it.
Okay. Simple enough. Is does tipping exist in Korea, or is there a standard there?
No, tipping doesn't exist here.
Okay, easy enough. Are are the meal times standard with the rest of the world, or does would you say Korea has unique meal times?
I'm not sure if it's unique. There we have lunch and dinner. It is really hard to find breakfast restaurants because most restaurants open for lunch and dinner. There are some
Mhm.
restaurants that have a sign we have serve breakfast, but you cannot, most foreigners would not be able to read small sign for local people, and you cannot find everywhere like, oh, where's that sign. So
Mhm.
usually I think most visitors, including myself here, I live here, but when I do not cook breakfast, I would just go to any cafe or bakery and have
Mhm.
coffee with some bread or cookies. That's what most friends of mine do from Europe or the States.
Mhm.
And for lunch, they're open from 11 to 2:30 or 3 p.m. 11 a.m.
Okay.
to 2:30 or 3 p.m. Usually between 3 and 4:30, they have a break time, but they won't serve
Mhm.
food. Not all, but quite many. I would say probably 60%, 70%. So you would want to have lunch between 11 and 3:30.
Mhm.
And for dinner, usually if you have a one really heavy food like Korean barbecue and the stuffed fried chicken that I mentioned, they're usually
Mhm.
open from 5 p.m. until 9 or 10 p.m. But if you go there pretty late, like 8:30 or 9, some restaurants wouldn't want to serve you because they want to wrap up and want to finish just serving the existing customers.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd say that's pretty much right in line with the norm in America, so makes it easy enough. Are there any specific restaurants or areas of Korea that or Seoul that you would recommend people to eat at?
Um, you mean franchise restaurant areas or restaurants?
Specific restaurants.
Specific restaurants. Yeah, there is one 닭갈비 restaurant that I mentioned. As I mentioned, the food.
Mhm.
Um, it is kind of hard to find actually on your own,
Okay.
unless I offer the address. It's near Mangwon Market. Mangwon. I live near Mangwon Market, near Mangwon
Mhm.
Station. There's one 닭갈비 place on the main road. It is amazing.
Mhm.
I took over 10 different groups of friends and guests, and they all loved it.
Mm. And is there any neighborhoods that are like more full of good restaurants?
Oh, okay. So Hongdae and Sangsu have lots of good restaurants. Sorry about
Mhm.
this. Hongdae and Sangsu has lots of good restaurants. Hongdae is the party area. Sangsu is an extended area from Hongdae, and they have bunch of restaurants and cafes. Another big area is also traditional area is Jongno. When you go to Jongno, it's where like Joseon Dynasty people used to live mainly there, and you can find tons of restaurants. Jongno, and another trendy one is actually Songsu. There's a Songsu Cafe district. You will find so many good trendy restaurants and cafes in Songsu. So I would say again, Hongdae and Sangsu on the west, in the north on the north part, Jongno in the east, Sangsu.
Okay, great. So, what are some of the top destinations or places to visit while you're in Seoul?
Top destinations. So it really depends. It comes down to your preferences. But as I observed and surfed, um, Gyeongbok Palace is number one. It's the
Hmm.
main historic palace in Korea out of five major palaces. The Gyeongbok Palace is the one many people want to wear hanbok and get around, take beautiful pictures like princes or princesses.
Hmm.
With also background in the background you have also mountains, so it's perfect.
Hmm.
And another one is Bukchon Hanok Village. Bukchon Hanok Village is where you can find traditional houses in literally in a village. Namsan Tower is an iconic tower and has been there for a long, long time. So you can, if you go there, you can have a good view over Seoul. So Namsan Tower, Namdaemun Market is the biggest conventional market. You can find everything and anything, and also a lot of good restaurants and street food. Street food is amazing. Myeongdong street food is overrated. The most tourist area. I
Hmm.
mentioned tourists only go there. Korean locals do not go to Myeongdong to find street food because their street foods are extremely expensive. If you eat like two pieces, it would be already 10,000 won, which is $8. But with 10,000 won, you can get a decent meal, even better.
Hmm.
And another place you want to visit would be Naksan Park. Naksan Park is where you can see Seoul Fortress Wall. And it's really beautiful. It has been there for many decades, many hundreds of years.
Hmm.
And you can also see Dongdaemun Market, which is the big east gate, and also all the major modern shopping malls as well.
Awesome. For some of the, I guess, more popular places like the Palace and the Tower, are there specific times that you would recommend people to visit them to avoid peak crowding?
If you want to go to all these major places, please avoid weekends. On Saturdays and Sundays, you will be trampled over by Korean people here, Seoulites, because they want
Hmm.
to also enjoy. And there are a number of people who want to see those towers and palaces from other cities and other towns. So you will see a lot of Koreans as well. So best time is to go there early in the morning because Korean people want to enjoy. If they want to enjoy their vacation days, they would usually start quite late, 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. Then, so morning or early afternoon would be the best. If you want to go to Namsan Tower, never ever go there at night because if
Okay.
you want to see a great view, but because of the lightings inside, you cannot see everything clearly and you cannot have a good picture at all. This is
Hmm.
something that I found and my friends found.
Okay. No, that's really good to know. Are there any areas that are better than others for people who want to buy, say, tour or buy souvenirs or crafts, goods, anything like that?
I would say Insadong, when you go to Insadong is where you can find lots of good galleries, tea houses, and traditional houses as well. Insadong is where you can find quite unique souvenirs. Like I said, Namdaemun Market is where you can find the souvenirs at the best rate and also pretty good ones.
Hmm.
Quite standard. But if you want to find some souvenirs, uh, practical souvenirs, you can go to Emart. Emart. I'm not even sponsored by them, but Emart is the biggest supermarket brands. There are three biggest. ones, big ones, and Emart has lots of good stuff, like even metal chopsticks, metal spoons, like sets combo, and lots of good tea, like green tea that has some awards. And you can find lots of good practical stuff, and they can be good souvenirs. And when I bring my friends from Europe, and they find it very interesting, and they buy quite a lot from there.
Okay. So apart from, I'm guessing that store, since it is a big chain, would you say if you're at like a local market, is negotiating something that people do, or the price that you see is what you pay?
Oh, okay. That is really difficult to say yes or no,
Hmm.
because some prices are tagged a little higher than they're supposed to be, but other
Hmm.
prices are pretty normal, so you wouldn't even have to haggle. But I would say if you want to buy some bags, but they're a little bit more expensive than you think they are, then I would
Hmm.
haggle. And actually, I haggled many times for my friends, and they get surprised. Why? Wow, how did you do that? How did you know? But it really depends on the context. So for bags, like fancy bags at Insadong or touristy areas, because they design their own goods and products or goods, and they want
Hmm.
to sell, they mark them at quite higher prices. So I would try to haggle, but it really depends on the context.
Okay. Good to know. And so you said that right now what you're specializing in for tours is kind of the off the beaten path locations. Could
Yeah.
you describe a few of those to us that you are your top places?
Yes, of course. One of the off the beaten paths that I really like is Shincheon. So Shincheon is a subway station, one subway stop away from Hongdae. And if you go there, Hongdae has so many crowd, hustle and bustle all the time. But if you go to Shincheon, it is quite serene and tranquil. You can find serene, tranquil, and peaceful. But you can still find lots of good local restaurants at super good rates. And there are cute little cafes in the hidden alleys that you can. And also, it's a university town. There are three universities around: Yonsei, Ewha, and Seogang. And so you can find a lot of young vibes there too. There is also a trail that is connected to Sincheon Yonsei University and also Ewha University, and all the neighbors are really cool. There are tiny little stores, restaurants, and cafes, and that Sincheon area is also connected to a nearby mountain called Ansan, and you can climb up to Ansan. It's not very high; it takes only like 40 minutes, and if you go to the top, you can have a great view. And from there, you can go to another neighbor because it's a mountain that and that stretches to another mountain, another area of Seoul. You can find some historical area and find really local neighbors. So I strongly recommend it. You can also find a very hipster cave with all the graffiti, and many friends of mine see that. Oh wow, I didn't expect to see that here, and it's quite cozy. There is a huge park right in front of Megabox Cinema in Ewha Women's University area between Sincheon and Ewha Ide Station, Ewha Women's University Station. And there's a huge park. It is kind of waiting for free, and not many people know that. So every time I have free time, I go there with my friends, have beer, over some snacks, and it's a great area.
Okay, wow. Yeah, it sounds like there's a ton to do in Seoul. How many days would you recommend somebody spends in Seoul when they're planning their trip?
I guess you should spend at least 2 weeks because
Okay.
there are so many things to do here. But I
Yeah.
have go-to itineraries. For example, if you, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this,
Yeah,
but if
definitely
you,
plug yourself.
so if you go to my homepage, gogetkorea.com, I
Mhm.
already made itineraries for visitors called Go 10 Plans. So with one itinerary, you can spend, depending upon your pace, 2 to 3 days. So with that itinerary, you can spend about like at least 10 days. But if you
Mm.
keep up good pace, I think that you will probably spend over 14 to 21 days with those itineraries. There
Wow.
are so many things to do: historic thing, modern thing, K-pop, K-drama thing, food, tour, palace. There are so many palaces. Even Gyeongbok Palace alone, it usually takes about 4 hours to just get a general glimpse because it's a huge palace.
Wow. Yeah. No, I'll link everything that you've mentioned, recommended, and all of your links on my website so people can find them there. But is there anything else that you think people should know before coming to Seoul?
Before coming to Seoul, you should check your bank status. I found many Europeans and some Americans have a hard time withdrawing cash
Mm.
because I think Korea is still new to the West. And especially, I saw some German friends, Belgians, and the Dutch friends had a hard time withdrawing cash because their banks in their home countries found that their bank transactions as scammy or some suspicious act.
Mm.
I so I don't know the background information between the banks. So I think you should have at least 2 to 3 cash debit cards or check cards so that you won't have any problems withdrawing cash. And also, when you withdraw cash, never ever withdraw cash at a standalone ATM, but at major banks, like big banks, so that you won't lose money for commission.
Okay. Anything else that I might have missed?
When you are here, many friends from the States complain that they always walk up the stairs and walk down the stairs especially when you use the subway.
Mm.
And one subway usually, it really depends on the subway station. Some of them usually they have 6 or 7 different exits all around. And like you go to New York, like that. And one subway station may have one elevator and or 2 to 3 escalators, but
Mm.
some old stations do not have any. They have elevator, but it's kind of hard to find an elevator because, for example, if you want to go to this exit, go out of this exit, but the elevator is here, then you
Hmm.
will have a hard time finding the elevator and how to redirect your um, route, and it is hard to do that on your smartphone, and you're heavy and you would be worried if somebody would steal your stuff. So you should be ready to drag everything with your hands. But if not, if you want to make it easy, you can take an airport limousine bus. From airport, there are 3 ways to go to your Airbnb or hotel. One is subway. The other is airport limousine bus. It is only about 12 to 13 dollars for the bus ride, and you will have to probably take a taxi for a very short route or just drag. Usually, you would end up using the airport limousine bus and would just walk for 5 to 10 minutes. That's all. And I strongly recommend it because even the bus driver would carry your load your luggage onto the bus, and he will just take it off the
Okay.
bus.
Yeah, because I've heard the airport's kind of out in the middle of nowhere almost. It's pretty far from the center of Seoul, so at least for Incheon specifically. So yeah, if you are bringing a bunch of luggage, you're probably gonna have to lug it around a bit through the subway. So yeah, I think that's a good recommendation there to book the taxi.
Yeah, booking a taxi is also a good recommendation. It takes about, I would say, to get to downtown Seoul, it would be about 65,000 won, so it would be $55, I think.
Hmm.
It's not so expensive, but if you take a limousine bus, it's cheaper.
Mm.
If I would arrive in Incheon Airport, I always do Incheon Airport bus because it's cheaper and I mean it's faster. It's not cheaper, but it's faster. and you don't have to worry about the luggage because you don't have to go down in case you use the subway. You don't have to go down and go up. You don't have to do that, especially if you have a broken leg or if you're not agile. So that would be taking an airport limousine bus would be a better option. Taking a taxi is not so expensive, so you can do it. Subway is not so bad, but if you take express subway, it is a little bit pricier. It's about 10,000 won, which is about $8. But the normal train to go to downtown Seoul will be like $5. That's $4.
Okay. Is Uber a thing in Korea, or is there kind of a local app?
So, oh right, this I have to hit this. Uber in Korea doesn't exist because
Okay.
Uber, by the time it was almost here, the taxi union um, wanted to just scatter them away because they they didn't want to they didn't want them to ruin their ruin their business. So we don't have Uber, but if you download Uber app, if you still have it, you will be able to use Uber Taxi. So it's taxi, but some taxis have the Uber logos on the taxi. Apps, you must download Kakao Maps and Naver Maps.
Okay.
So Korea is very limited when it comes to using Google Maps. You can still use them, but because of the restrictions, because of the situation between north and south, there's some limitation, and also I think some companies did some fishy thing to prevent Google from being establishments. I don't know the long history, but Google still works with the public transportation system. So if you want to find your route, Google still works pretty well, but Naver and Kakao works better. I personally use everything, but my favorite is Kakao Maps. But it doesn't support English. But with orientation and direction-wise, technology-wise, Kakao Maps is better. Naver Maps is better because with English because
Okay.
you can do everything in English. So Naver Maps, if you do not know Korean, if you know Korean, Kakao Maps.
Perfect. All right. Is there anything else I've missed?
Um, anything? Many people here come to Korea. Many people come to Korea from other countries or cultures and want to do the things that they see on Instagram or on the internet. So they scratch the surface like Namsan Tower, Myeongdong, and do Hongdae, and what? And many people would end up feeling very hollow or empty because when you check, oh, this, that, and what, then you do not feel the city, the heart of the city. So, but when I introduce them to some hidden gems and local things, tiny little things, for example, like going to market here and going to the Han River together and see the Han River view, sit at the park, having coffee together or having ramen at a convenience store, even having the overview of the Han River. They say, wow, there was this park and they love it. But there are so many hidden gems and things to do, even as a local, because Seoul is one of the best cities for activities, and you shouldn't miss out on the local and hidden corners. Not just do not worry so much about checking all the big tourist spots or tourist traps.
Perfect. So you mentioned your website. How else can people find you and connect with you and book a tour through you if they're coming over?
Kimchiman in Seoul is my Instagram account. So I offer hidden gems, especially I'm becoming a tour guide, Seoul cafe guide. So I talked with one of my friends, Zach from Busan. He's helping me out with the orientation because like I told you, I am reprogramming my tours and because I want to offer the best things also in Seoul. And I'm becoming a Seoul cafe guide. So anybody who wants to go to the cafes or do some local things, hidden corners, then you should check out my Instagram, Kimchiman in Seoul. And I am trying to introduce all the cafes that I visited. I made lots of videos, but I haven't edited them all. you can find really good hidden gems with me.
Well, awesome. This has been really great. Thank you so much. I'll add all of your recommendations and links to your Instagram and website to my website. And once again, thank you so much. This has been very, very great.
Oh, I really appreciate your time and all the questions and concerns and attention, of course. Yeah. Thank you very much for everything.
No, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed my interview with Eungul. Be sure to head over to my website, www.tllpod.com, for all of his recommendations and more. If you want to learn how to make bibimbap, you can find this recipe on my TikTok and Instagram at @tll_pod. Please let me know what cities you want to learn about next, but until then, happy traveling.